Hey now, hey now, hey now. What's going on? Who's in there? Who is my one viewer? 5 viewers. Oh, well, what do you know? Getting popular by the moment. Let's see. Let me take a look at who we got here. Hey, how you doing? Two-wheel Shmeal here. Ready to do an interesting little chapter. I read about half of it. Just getting ready. Got some definitions ready to throw at you. Hello, Goodwitch. So the first half should go somewhat smoothly. And just give it a hot second. I'm going to wait about 2 minutes and we'll get started. So let's see here. How you doing? Alright, I'll be right there. Maybe I'll do a little guitar. Got an old song I made for my little buddy. My cat that I had for 20 years, who died. A couple years ago, he died. About 6 months before he died, I could tell he was getting a little, wasn't looking good. So I made a little song for him, and I started making it when he was still alive. He was still right next to me when I started making it. I played a little different each time, so let's see how it comes out. There you go. That's it, pretty much. There he was. There's my little boy. He was the shit, man. 20 years. Ain't he the man? That was my boy. And you know me, I like to go fishing a lot. And so, in this cold weather, fishing in the cold weather, I put my waders on all the time. That was me with the big goatee. I took them and stuffed them inside my waders. You can see there's snow out on the ground out there in the picture. Look at him. Isn't that my boy, man? It was tough when I had to put him down, but I would do it all over again. No doubt. Alright. Happy Halloween to everybody. I don't care if it's a satanic Jewish holiday, as some people say. Don't care. I still remember Halloween as a fun time. When I was a kid, getting candy, having a good time. What's up, bad boy? Alright, so this one is Operation Red Daisy. Some shit's about to go down. So even if you missed all the other chapters, this one is kind of its own little story in a chapter. It got some new characters being introduced, but the same old kind of thing going down. Alright. How many we got in here now? Let's check the stream real quick. 19? Alright. So I bought enough time. Thank you, Mile High. What's up, GDL? GDL! Alright. Let's get down. Let's get down to business. Shall we? Operation Red Daisy. One after another, a parade of stretch limousines pulled up in front of an unremarkable two-story building squatting on the corner of a blighted stretch of Coney Island Avenue. So, what does blighted mean? Does that mean the shit part of town? I'm getting a feeling that it does. Blighted. You can see this part here. An ugly, neglected, or run-down urban area. Alright. So you got all these stretch limousines pulling up in a shit part of town. It's kind of odd. Out of each stepped a massive Russian in a tuxedo, more often than not, accompanied by a slender blonde in a low-cut gold lame evening gown. Alright, so if you're like me, you said, what the fuck is a gold lame evening gown? Of course, I had to look it up. I'm a nerd. I admit it. Let's see what we got here. I don't know what's taking so long. There you go. There's a gold lame gown. So they were styling. Stepping out in style. Look at this one's down here. Yeah. Look at this one getting her money right. With the whole hand things and shit. Jazz hands and shit. Alright. Back to the story. A little delay here. That's okay. So this stretch limousines pull up at this shitty part of town, and all these beautiful looking people, big ass Russians, start stepping out. As they entered the etched brown metal doors, they were ushered into another world. A world that resembled nothing so much as the set of a B-movie made 6,000 miles away. Black and brown imported Italian marble covered the floor of the foyer, where a hand-painted mural of St. Petersburg's skyline led arriving guests into a cavernous nightclub and to tables covered with rose-colored tablecloths laden with slabs of sable, skewers of beef, and ice-cold bottles of Stolies. So what the hell is a slab of sable? I thought sable was a fur. Sable is a kind of fur, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about this kind of marble. So that's what the tables look like in that place. Just painting the scene for my guys. Just painting the scene. And they were banging down bottles of Stoli. As multicolored lasers crisscrossed the room, Joseph Kobzon, a renowned Russian pop star, crooned top 40 tunes from the motherland and for the honored guests that evening, Sinatra ballads. Sinatra ballads. So who's this guy? I never heard of him. Joseph Kobzon. I looked him up. Wait till you see this dude. Come on with the delay. I got some lag tonight. That's okay. There he is. This guy is apparently, they call him the Russian Sinatra. Yo, I like that picture right there. See, oh my God. Tell me that's not a toupee. I would say kill it with fire. That's what I would say. That's gotta be a toupee, right? Look at that shit, bro. Holy shit. I never seen a hairline like that. Except for that dude JB on the sports announcing. Alright, so that guy is in there in the 80s doing pop tunes for him. So they got these exquisite tables of this beautiful marble, limousines, girls decked out in these gowns and shit. But it's in a shitty part of town, a blighted part of the town. What the hell is going on with that? This place, this was Rasputin, the Winter Palace of Brooklyn. Rasputin was a famous Russian. About 100 years ago, he got close to the Tsars in Russia and became friends with the Tsarist family. There's Rasputin. So that was their hero, and that's what the place was called, Rasputin. It's a nightclub in a shitty part of town. Alright. Off to the side stood two barrel-chested men beaming, almost giddy. For the Zilber brothers, Vladimir 32 and Alex 34, everything had led up to this June 1992 gala opening. They had arrived in Brooklyn as penniless Jewish refugees from Odessa 13 years earlier. Their father was a foreman in a New Jersey pillow factory, their mother a seamstress there. The boys, however, had quickly realized that the honest, hard-working immigrant was a chump game. They had made more than their parents ever dreamed possible from gasoline bootlegging, money laundering, and casinos and aluminum factories in the former Soviet Union. The Zilber brothers, Vladimir as an informal head of the U.S. operations, and Alex as their Russian liaison, had become dons in the Brighton Beach mob. This was their Russian cotillion. So we'll go to the dictionary. I got it set up. First we have sable. We already looked at that. And then we've got... We already know liaison is a contact or someone who assists in communication, whatever. But what's a cotillion? A cotillion is a formal ball, especially one at which debutantes are presented. Well, I knew debutantes were women, but what exactly are debutantes? Upper-class young woman making her first appearance in fashionable society. So a newbie, basically. A hot, young, rich newbie. When the Zilbers took their place at head of the table, where a row of dark-suited Italian Americans, all members of the Genovese crime family, peered across nearly empty vodka bottles at an equal number of Russian hard faces. Oh man, I got a serious delay. I'm going to read that again. When the Zilbers took their place at the head table, where a row of dark-suited Italian Americans, all members of the Genovese crime family, peered across nearly empty vodka bottles at an equal number of hard-faced Russians. It symbolized a new era in organized crime in America. The Russians had always loved films about the American mafia and took great pains to emulate their predecessors' sense of sartorial style. So, emulate and sartorial. Let's look it up. Emulate means to copy, but not exactly. Let's see. Emulate, to match or surpass a personal achievement, typically by imitation. And what the hell is sartorial style? That's how you dress, relating to tailoring and clothes. So if you got mad sartorial style, then your dressing is off the hook. But on this night, the two groups had more in common than a taste for heavy gold chains and open collars. The Russians had finally become powerful enough to sit at the same table with the Italians. Literally, in this case. No longer semi-comic Godfather pretenders, the Russians were now arguably just as ruthless and, by many accounts, considerably wealthier than their more long-established counterparts. The Italians were not entirely flattered by the gaudy imitation. They warned their Russian colleagues against indulging in glitzy nightclubs that might attract the attention of the FBI and the media. So they weren't too happy about this gaudy look. So what's gaudy? Doesn't that mean like over the top? Let's take a look real quick. My shit is freezing up. Damn, my shit is going slow. Let me see if there's something I could shut down. I've never seen this computer go this slow. So there's gaudy. You can check that out while I'm trying to shut something off here. There's too much going on. Gaudy is extravagantly bright or showy, typically so as to be tasteless. So when you're just over the top. You know who's gaudy? You remember, what's his name? The guy that does Ali G? How he dresses all over the top? That's gaudy. Alright, let's see what I can force quit here. Give me a second, bear with me. I'm gonna quit a couple things here, I think. We can quit that. We can quit that. We can quit that. Damn, a lot of shit open. Hopefully this will make it run better. And, yeah, that should be good. Alright, back to the text. Yeah, that's faster. That's better already. So the Italians warned them, listen, no fucking fancy nightclubs and all that shit. You're gonna get the attention of the FBI. They try to tell them. But these young guys, remember these two guys, the Zilber brothers, were 32 and 34 at the time. And that's pretty young for the mob game. You know, they're still basically nothing but a seasoned 20-something. Not entirely wary about what's going on. Indeed, in November 1994, the New York Times featured Rasputin in its living section. That's bad. Ladies and gentlemen, that is bad. When you're running money through the mob and shit, and your nightclub gets featured, not good. In the New York Times, no less. Next page. Seems to be working a little better here. So long after Rasputin's grand opening, investigators examined its books. The ledgers showed that the restaurant had been renovated for $800,000, but according to one Genovese crime family figure, the men's bathroom alone cost $500,000. In fact, more than $4 million had been spent on upgrading Rasputin. No legit guy is going to invest that kind of money in a restaurant, said the Genovese source. The Zilbers wanted a place to sit with a big cigar, then fuck the broads that come in there. The restaurant is going to be their downfall. The Genoveses had good reason to be concerned about the Zilber brothers' ostentatious lifestyle. Didn't we go over ostentatious the other day? Yes, we did. It's basically gaudy. So let's see. Oh, alright, I didn't set it up because we should know it. Okay. The restaurant's going to be their downfall, he says. The Genoveses had good reason to be concerned about the Zilber brothers' ostentatious lifestyle. They had staked Vladimir Zilber's gasoline bootlegging operation in exchange for a percentage of the tens of millions of dollars he made evading state and federal excise taxes. My friends, what the fuck's an excise tax? An excise tax is a tax levied on certain goods and commodities. So there you go. And in this case, it was gas. And they were evading these taxes to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. So the Italian mafia put them up in this business just for an exchange of a piece of that action. But he had gotten reckless, shaking down a team of FBI, IRS, undercover agents posing as gasoline distributors in Ewing Township, New Jersey, and then, in February '92, allegedly ordering the torching of the undercover business when they refused to pay a mob tax. So you got these FBI/IRS guys posing, and they got shaken down. Not good. If you're going to shake someone down, try to make sure it's not an FBI or IRS guys, all right? So just try to remember that. And if you order the burning and torching of a business, make sure it's not a front for the FBI. Usually a good idea. So now the Italians don't like it because these guys are attracting all kinds of attention. Now they're shaking down undercovers, UCs. On November the 20th, 1992, Vladimir was summoned to a meeting in Manhattan with Genovese crime family figures who accused him of jeopardizing the business. A huge man with a tripwire personality, Zilber was not cowed. That means they didn't punk him down. If I go down, you go down too, Zilber told the Italians. I'm not going to prison. Zilber had big balls, said the Genovese associate. Unfortunately, he used them for his brains. Zilber's sour-tempered performance only stoked the Italians' fears. If he talked, he could implicate, among others, Daniel Pagano, a 42-year-old Genovese capo who not only got a penny out of every 27 cents in gasoline taxes that the Russians stole, but was also involved in the record industry, which we read a little bit about. Another guy in the record industry, loan sharking, and gambling. An additional penny went to Gambino capo Anthony Fat Tony Morelli, who delivered a weekly cut to Gambino boss John Gotti at the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club. The cash reeked of gasoline. Pagano was mob royalty. His late father, Joseph, a convicted narcotics trafficker, had been fingered by mafia snitch Joseph Valachi as a hitman for the Genovese crime family in the 1950s. So his dad was a fucking hitman. After the acrimonious Manhattan discussions, Zilber was supposed to go to a sit-down with representatives of Pagano in Brooklyn, says a well-placed Russian mob source. So what's acrimonious mean? How did that meeting go? If it was acrimonious, let's take a look. I don't think it was too good. Acrimonious, typically of speech or a debate, angry and bitter. So this was not a good little meeting they had. So according to the Genovese figure, however, on the day of the meeting, Zilber was actually heading to Brooklyn to work out the details of a new gasoline scam, which he was concealing from Pagano and Morelli. Whatever version is true, this much is known. Although he traveled with 4 Genovese bodyguards, Zilber was alone when he steered his father-in-law's battered 1989 Ford Taurus south toward the FDR Drive off-ramp onto the Brooklyn Bridge during rush hour. As he approached the ramp, a car braked in front of him. Another car with 4 Russians pulled up alongside. A shotgun blast hit Zilber in the side of the head, blowing away his optic nerve and filling his brain with bullet fragments. If his window had been open, doctors say, Zilber would have been killed. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for our first lesson of the night. Always give enough space between you and the car in front of you. This shit happens a lot. Car in front of you stops, you get stuck, guy comes up behind you, pins you in, and out come the boys. Pa, pa, pa. They're going to rob you, whatever. Doesn't matter. If you're at a red light, same thing. You could have a car coming up behind you, rushing at high speed, doesn't see the red light. You got to at least give yourself some room with the car in front of you so you can go off-road and get out of the fucking way or find a way out somehow. Because if you're pulled up too close to people at that light, you're pinned. You're stuck there. You're just a fucking sitting duck. Think. Be aware of your surroundings. After the shooting, Fat Tony Morelli materialized next to Zilber's bed in Bellevue Hospital's intensive care unit. Morelli whispered something to the wounded Russian, and Zilber subsequently refused to talk to the police. I wonder what he said to him. We're gonna kill your whole fucking family, you motherfucking piece of shit. Maybe it went something like that. Vladimir did rant to the staff that he had been the victim of a mob hit, although the police had initially told the doctors that he was the victim of road rage. Oh yeah, it was road rage, all right. Somebody raged on him on the road. That's for sure. That we know. His physician noted in his medical chart that Zilber was a delusional, paranoid schizophrenic. Knowing better, Alex Zilber surrounded his brother's room with round-the-clock bodyguards. Let's get to the next thing. The police found the shooter's car abandoned at South Street Seaport, a popular tourist attraction in Lower Manhattan. This was the hit car. Inside was the shotgun used to shoot Zilber, as well as a rifle, a baseball cap, and a hairband, the type that the Russian gangsters fancy for their flamboyant ponytails. So I looked up flamboyant. We know that it means like showing, you're over showy. But it also says of a person or their behavior tending to attract attention because of their exuberance, confidence, and stylishness. So, if you're flamboyant, not only are you just peacocking, but you also, you're exuberant, you're confident, and you're displaying this thing of, oh, forget about it. You know what I'm saying? So, shortly after the incident, the real reason for Zilber's hit became clear. Through informants in the New York Police Department, the Italian Mafia had learned that federal indictments were being prepared. Zilber would be a serious liability when they were issued. He's lucky his head wasn't blown off, said the Genovese figure. Vladimir was a loose cannon. Shutting him up was an act of survival. Indeed, the hit could not have taken place, Russian and Italian underworld sources, as well as federal authorities agree, if Pagano and Morelli had not sanctioned it. The shooters would need somebody's permission on the Italian side to kill the primary goose that was laying the golden egg, says a federal prosecutor. The attempt on Zilber's life prodded the authorities into action. On November 22, 1992, 2 days after the ambush on the FDR, an army of federal agents, under the code name Operation Red Daisy, hence the name of the chapter, fanned out across New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida with more than 200 search warrants, confiscating evidence and freezing assets of the alleged gasoline bootleggers. After years of neglect, yeah, right, they just didn't do it. Law enforcement had finally begun to marshal its forces and pay serious attention to the Russian threat, Operation Red Daisy would be by far its most successful foray against the Russian mob to date. A foray is like when you go into something. Foray. A sudden attack or incursion into enemy territory, especially to obtain something. A raid. There you go. This guy's fucking vocabulary is off the meter. Now let me tell you something. They said that after years of neglect, they finally did this shit, this raid, shutting it down. But it's a fact that the ADL would pressure these cops and say, oh, you're anti-Semitic if you investigated the Russian mob, because the Russian mob was also Jewish, for the most part. And, oh my God, we can't investigate them. We're anti-Semitic if that happens. So it wasn't just neglect, all right? There was a lot of high-powered Jewish interests who are putting money into defeating any possible raids on these people. And we're about to hear that. But in general, state and federal enforcement agencies were loath, they hated it, to go after Russian mobsters, instead devoting their energies to bagging Italian wise guys, a traditional route to promotion. And because the Russian mob was mostly Jewish, it was a political hot potato, especially in the New York area, where the vast majority of refugees were being resettled by Jewish welfare agencies. And so you see, special protection, special rules for the special ones. We see it time and time again. Okay. Where the hell am I? Okay. As for the New York City Police Department, it had almost no Russian-speaking cops, and even fewer reliable informants in the Russian emigre community. Let's see. We know emigre is an immigrant, right? Oh, look, I erased the words I had ready by typing in a new one. Oh, well. Yeah, you'll have to take my word. An emigre is someone who leaves his country for another, usually under political pressure. For years, the New York Police Department's intelligence unit couldn't find a single detective to monitor the Russian mob because many cops were scared. The Russians are just as crazy as the Jamaican drug gangs, a Ukrainian-speaking detective who declined to work for the Russian beat told me in 1992. They won't hesitate to go after a cop's family. So this is a New York cop who's Ukrainian, and he refused to go on the Russian beat. What's that tell you? So combined with the power from the ADL and JDL and organizations like that to put pressure on people, because next thing you know, the NYPD will be in the New York Times as they're just going after them just because they're Jewish and all that shit. Not only do you have that, but you have the fact that you're going to get killed. You can get killed. Your family, as a cop, could get whacked. So do you really want to touch these guys? I don't know. You got to be a real fucking company, man. The New York Police Department was apparently unaware of the existence of the Russian mob until December 7th, 1982, a date which will live in infamy. They were unaware. Right. When detectives were summoned to a luxury apartment building on Manhattan's East 49th Street near the United Nations, there they found a middle-aged man sprawled across the bed on his back, his arms outstretched, feet dangling over the edge and touching the floor, his eyes wide open. At first glance, lead detective Barry Drubin, a gruff police veteran, believed the deceased was a heart attack victim. The body lay in peaceful repose. Looked like he was resting. There were no signs of a forced entry or struggle, and the dead man was still carrying his wallet, wearing an expensive gold watch, and a black leather jacket. When Drubin looked more closely, however, he noticed that the vessels in one eye had burst, filling it with a dollop of blood. A dollop is like a little drop. Drubin gently raised the man's head and saw that blood had coagulated in the back of the man's hair. There was no blood on the bed. The victim had been shot once, execution style at close range above the right ear at the hairline with a .25 caliber handgun. We traced the bullet hole from the back of his head to the entry wound, Drubin says. It was a professional hit. Drubin's men searched the 3-room apartment, which was decorated with expensive artwork. Nothing appeared to be disturbed or missing, and they turned up no shell casings or suspicious... Just a second. Or suspicious fingerprints. A large open attaché case in the living room was empty, save for a jeweler's loupe, a magnifying lens used to examine gems. Huh. What would this guy need to be examining gems for? The briefcase was subsequently checked for trace amounts of drugs, but the tests were negative. Inside a credenza in the den, a credenza is like a little secret cabinet. The detectives found $50,000 wrapped in cellophane. Why couldn't that be me? How come I don't find 50 grand wrapped in cellophane? Whatever, you know. And it was tucked away next to a VCR and an extensive video porn collection. A small amount of recreational hash was nearby. The victim was soon identified as 49-year-old Yuri Brokin. Hey, we read about him. The man with whom Monia Elson had first teamed up with when he arrived in Brighton Beach, and with whom he had enjoyed a great deal of success robbing and smuggling precious gems. There you go. That's why he needed a gem loop. But as Drubin soon discovered, Brokin had been leading a paradoxical double life. Most of the world knew him as a prominent Russian Jewish dissident, author, and filmmaker who had immigrated to the United States with his wife, Tanya, on November the 16th, 1972. So what's a dissident? Isn't a dissident someone who's against the government or the politics? Let's see here. A person who opposes official policy, especially that of an authoritarian state. There you go. Don't be a dissident, because if so, we're going to get you. So he moved to the United States with his wife Tanya in 1972. He lived in an expensive apartment on Manhattan's East Side, bought a small country home on Long Island, and frequently treated friends to dinner at Elaine's, a famous hangout for the city's literati. The literati is educated people who are into literature generally. And evenings at jazz clubs in Greenwich Village. Didn't we read about Elaine's before? I think we did. He also owned a black stretch limousine and a beat-up Mercedes-Benz that he spent thousands of dollars to refurbish. That means he fixed it up. While Tanya took a job at Radio City, earning $20,000 a year. It's not bad in 1982 or 1972 or whatever. Brokin worked to maintain his reputation as a writer of import. He had published 2 books which received mixed to poor reviews, including The Big Red Machine, an expose of corruption inside the Soviet sports establishment, which was published by Random House in 1978. Alright, so that's a little bit about the guy that ended up dead. Let's check the chat, see what's going on. Straight from Handsome, check it out, he says. Let's see. What is going on here? Keep me informed. This shit is slow. Damn, my shit is putting. This is the fast computer, too. Bear with me, folks. We got a public service announcement. 100% proof active shooter drill. Oh, okay. You guys notice that every time we have 9/11, what was going on? Drills. London bombing, what was going on? Drills. Even, what is the one with the kids in the school? Same thing. I hear there were drills going on. Now this. I don't know. See, this is the problem. This is why you get such crazy conspiracy theories and such crazy people believing just about anything. It's because it's so difficult for us to tell reality from fantasy. And when you're aware that the government does these types of things, these false flags, and these, using people like, ever since JFK, really, the public has become more aware of these things, and now the public itself can't even fucking tell truth from fiction. That's why you got people saying flat earth. The earth is flat, and NASA is lying to us. And we don't know what to believe. People don't know what's real and what isn't. And so, in an age of deception, it's more important for you to look at the details, more important than ever, to look at the details and to try to figure out reality for yourself. In my experience, I like to look at the most extreme view in one direction and the most extreme opposite view in the other direction. And generally the truth is somewhere in the middle section, right? Some people say total fucking psyop, it was fucking, it's all fake. And some people say it's all real. Maybe there's some middle ground. Who knows? Maybe they set the guy up. We just don't know. Now, when you don't know something, when you're not sure, the best thing to do is to say, I don't know, and admit you don't know, and then say, but my opinion is. Don't come off acting like you know something when you know you don't. That's always the best way, the most humble way to handle it. So let's take a look here. Yeah, why does the ATF... The ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, firearms, the DEA, these agencies, Homeland Security, they exist to act out the wishes of international bankers who own our country lock, stock, and barrel. Pardon the manners. I got you, Truth. Just like the FDA is an organization that works to protect the pharmaceutical industry, who puts regulations on like natural remedies and regulates people out of business. Just like the ICC back in the turn of the century, the International Commerce, I'm not sure what it was, but it was just to protect the railroads. That's the same thing. It's the same thing, brother. These organizations, ATF, all that shit. Alright, guys. I'll watch it when I'm getting done, but I'm in the middle of a stream right now, so I'm going to continue what's going on, and you're coming on soon, so I'm sure you'll cover it. I want to get back to doing my stream. Alright, guys. Let's see here. Alright, so we got a guy who's shot in the fucking head. And they're saying he lived a double life. Who is this guy, really? Right? He's frequenting with the city's literati. He's in jazz clubs. He's doing what, most mobsters did back then. While Tanya took a job at Radio City, earning $20,000 a year, Brokeen worked to maintain his reputation as a writer of import. He had published 2 books, which were received with mixed to poor reviews, including The Big Red Machine, an expose of corruption inside the Soviet sports establishment, which was published by Random House in 1978. Hey, maybe he wrote something about the wrong guy. Brokin's anti-Soviet diatribe soon brought him to the attention of New York Democratic Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, then vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Brokin was introduced to Moynihan by his chief of staff on the Intelligence Committee, Erich Brendel, an avid Cold Warrior. Brokin supplied the committee with information about alleged Soviet agents who had penetrated America posing as Jewish refugees. Although Moynihan has no memory of having met Brokin, Brokin and Brendel developed an enthusiastic relationship, according to David Lukens, the senator's longtime liaison to the Orthodox Jewish community. When Brokin was discovered murdered, Brendel leaked the story to the press that he had been killed by the KGB because he was at work on a devastating expose of the personal life of Yuri Andropov, the newly installed Soviet General Secretary and one-time KGB head. So it's possible that a KGB hit was authorized and conducted inside the United States. That type of shit goes on. Like the CIA does in other countries, they don't want you to know that shit happens here from other intelligence agencies too. But my guess is, if it was a KGB hit, it had the blessings of the CIA. That's my guess, because all these intelligence agencies, they work for the banks. This is something most people don't know. The modern incarnation of the intelligence agencies, they were always intelligence and spies, all through history. But the modern iteration, the modern incarnation of intelligence agencies started with the Bank of England back in like the 1700s. They had, their coinage was silver, and they would put that into circulation, but they noticed their silver started disappearing. Where's all the money in circulation going? Well, in France, the price of silver was higher than the face value of the coins that were in circulation. So these prominent Jews were coming to England, rounding up all the silver they could get, taking it to France, melting it down, and selling it as bullion in France to get the higher price. They would take the money, which they had more of, they would sail back to France and do it all again, back and forth. So they were depleting the money supply of England. I read that in The History of England by David Hume. And so what they did is they started the SIS, the Secret Intelligence Service. The first incarnation of the modern intelligence agencies worked for the Bank of England, the SIS. And all these different agencies, Israeli Mossad, the Saudi intelligence, the Iranian, I can't remember what they were called, the American CIA. These people all work together on a higher level. So the agents themselves might think they're opposed to the Mossad and whatever, but on a higher level, they work to make sure they keep the international banking cabal going. That's what those agencies are there for primarily. Secondarily, they're there to corporate spying, and the last thing they're worried about is protecting the country they're from. And, their main thing is to rout out dissidents and fucking discover dissidents like people online. This is what they do. That's the main thing. So, in my mind, all these agencies work together. Alright, back to the text. So, this guy might have been killed by the KGB. Brendel told Moynihan that Brokin's execution was reminiscent of the highly publicized assassination of a Bulgarian dissident and anti-Soviet writer in England who was stabbed with the poisonous tip of an umbrella by communist agents and later succumbed to the lethal toxin. You guys can actually look that up. That's a real deal. Stabbed him with an umbrella, the little point with poison. That's a hit. That's a quiet hit right there. After he put a bee in Moynihan's bonnet, as Lutyens recalls, Brandel encouraged the senator to publicly call on the FBI to probe whether the Russian emigre had been slain by a foreign intelligence agency. So, putting a bee in someone's bonnet is just a nice little way of saying he got them all stirred the fuck up. The Bureau dutifully complied, assigning William Moschella, one of its counterintelligence agents, to help Drubin unravel the Brookings homicide. Moschella was not one of their big brain trusts, I could tell you that, observed Drubin dryly. He wasn't their smartest guy. The New York Police Department's Peter Grinenko, a Ukrainian and Russian-speaking cop, was transferred from an auto theft detail to work with Moschella. Brookings' body had been discovered at 4:15 p.m. by his girlfriend, Tina Ragsdale. If you remember the last chapter, they all got wives and girlfriends, who called 911. Remember that? 911? He called 911 after returning home from her photo editor's job. She did, rather. Brookings' wife, Tanya, was found drowned in the bathtub in their apartment a year earlier. Brookings had recently taken out a $150,000 insurance policy on her life. I don't know what happened. She drowned in bathtub. I don't know. Where's my $150,000 for the life insurance? Oh, yeah. So he collected double indemnity. Indemnity is protection from possible anything going wrong. Ragsdale, a waif of a girl from Little Rock. What's a waif? I thought it meant skinny like wafer, but it doesn't. Waif of a girl means a homeless and helpless person, especially a neglected or abandoned child. A piece of property thrown away by a fleeing thief and held by the state in trust for the owner to claim. That's a waif. So she was a homeless or helpless or someone who is in bad shape, in dire straits. So she was a waif of a girl from Little Rock, immediately aroused Drubin's suspicion. She was in her 20s and he was 49, recalled Drubin. Remember, Drubin is the guy investigating this murder. And he's like, hey, it doesn't make sense. She's in her 20s, he's 49, and she looks a little too pretty for him. Here we go. And you really have to wonder what's wrong with this love-starved, overly romantic young woman. He thinks she's full of shit. He wasn't a particularly good-looking guy. In fact, he was quite ugly. He was hard and severe-looking, and she was relatively attractive. Yuri and I were interested in the same things, photography and art. Yeah, we were just interested in the same things. He was my soulmate. We liked art. 20 years older than you. We loved to hold hands and walk on the beach together. But he's ugly as fuck. Well, you know, had nothing to do with his money. Nothing at all. Yuri and I were interested in the same things, photography and art, Ragsdale insisted when interviewed 15 years later after her boyfriend's homicide. That was our common meeting ground. She had given Drubin precisely the same explanation, but he didn't buy it. We got bad vibes from Tina. We felt she was holding back. We found the cash, hashish by the television, and the pornography tapes, and we didn't feel she was giving us information. After hours of relentless grilling, a tearful Ragsdale finally surrendered what the police wanted. The names of Brookings' closest friends, people to whom she had grown close and may have had reason to protect. Although Ragsdale had given him a long list of names, Drubin didn't recognize any of them. There was nobody to tell you who these people were like there would be with the Italians, he explained. At this point in time, Russian crime was recognized by authorities as a growing problem, but not an organized one, and Russian criminals, when they were caught in petty food stamp scams or even quite large Medicare frauds, were treated as isolated cases. However, the New York Police Department had become sufficiently concerned with the rise in Russian arrests to have recently authorized setting up a two-man intelligence unit under Detective Joel Campanella, a lot of Italians, to begin monitoring the phenomenon. Though he had only just begun his investigation, Campanella was at the time the closest thing to an expert on the subject, and when Drubin eventually turned to him for assistance, he helped confirm that Ragsdale's list of names was a menacing collection of Russian underworld figures. All right, let's check the chat. What's going on over here? Synagogue hoax. Guys, don't forget. Let's see what time it is. About an hour. Truth is going on. I guess you guys know already. Shady Anderson is back. I miss him. That fucking guy, I like him. And I hope I didn't scare him off by complimenting him too much, but when I watch a Shady Anderson video, I get hyped up. I get like, because he's real. You can tell he's not fake, and he's really concerned about his people and the future of his fucking country, and he's not afraid to call out the real deal about the insidious Jewish meddling, let's call it what it is, at the top, who are bringing in these migrants into England. And when he talks, when Shady talks, I get like, I could follow him into battle. That motherfucker, he gets me hyped up. And he's the one that red-pilled me on, on the fact of Tommy Robinson. So, I like me some Shady. All right, let's get back to it. Like to be done in an hour, and I'm sure we will be. Drubin hauled in dozens of these men for interrogation, all of whom were coarse, gulag-hardened thugs whom Ragsdale knew from smoke-filled parties, high-stakes card games, and vodka-laced nights in Russian cabarets. One suspect sat across Drubin's desk in the squad room, contemptuously chomping on a .22 caliber bullet. He would remove the bullet from the shell and chew on it. I don't know what kind of lead poisoning he has, and when I asked him if he had any more of those, he showed me a whole box of bullets. And my next question was the same question that you would have asked. Do you have a gun that goes with these bullets? The next thing on the desk is the gun. So the guy pulled the gun out. Drubin quickly realized that the Russians held him in very low regard. I had one suspect look me in the face and say, "I did time in the Arctic Circle. Do you think anything you're going to do is going to bother me?" Even the godfather of the Brighton Beach mob at the time, Evsey Agran, was brought in for questioning after one informant claimed that it had been he who had killed Brokin. Agran, however, had an alibi. He had been playing cards with his friends. They all had alibis, Drubin complained, but Agran exited the station house. Before Agran exited the station house, Drubin did manage to relieve him of his favorite, ever-present, electric cattle prod. Although Drubin was having little success in identifying the killer, he and Campanella were unearthing a huge amount of information about the workings of the Russian mob, and Campanella quickly set up a database in his unit. One of Campanella's most shocking discoveries was that many of his fellow cops in Brighton Beach were on the Organizatsia's payroll. By the way, I had been saying organizacja. I had been saying it wrong. Organizacja. Employed as bodyguards, all these crooked cops. They were on the fucking Russian mafia's payroll. Well, you should have paid them a little more at the NYPD, you fucking cheap cocksuckers. Employed as bodyguards, bagmen, and chauffeurs for Russian godfathers, the dirty cops made about $150 a night or more for special jobs. Remember, this is the 80s, and that's some good cash. Everyone knew, excluding international or internal affairs, that cops in cheap suits who looked like gangsters worked the door as bouncers and sat in the front tables at the Russian mob joints. Said criminal defense, let's see if we can get over there real quick. Said criminal defense attorney James DiPietro. Lot of Italians. This is the 80s. There were a lot more Italians on the force then. In the late 1980s, Campanella wrote to Internal Affairs about the problem. His complaint was ignored. Unaddressed, the problem persisted. In the summer of 1994, New York State tax investigator Roger Berger, acting on a tip from an underworld source, likewise contacted Internal Affairs, telling them about police working at the Rasputin and the Metropole nightclubs, as well as traffic cops participating in phony car accident scams with the Russians. Instead of investigating the complaint, however, Internal Affairs tried to browbeat him into revealing his sources. I said, first of all, these cops are the conduits of information between the precinct and the Russians, Berger recalls, and that would be just perfect to turn my informant over to you so he can get killed. Russians in Brighton Beach still don't trust the local cops because they see them work as bouncers at the local mobbed-up restaurants, says Gregory Stasiuk, an investigator with the New York State Organized Crime Task Force. The task force had me go out and do interviews with Russians rather than the NYPD. The Russian community thinks the cops are on the take. The 60th and the 61st precincts are very corrupt. We can't even do surveillance because the local cops make us in our vans. Make us means, they identify. And they blow their cover. Every move we make is reported to the Russian gangsters by the dirty cops. Barry Drubin was also warned, quote, to be careful about whom I talked to and what I said, unquote, in Brighton Beach because, quote, a lot of cops were on the mob's payroll. Detectives were working as bodyguards. They were making collections, and they were doing a little strong-arm shit. And I said, forget about this stuff here. I'm not going anywhere near this with a 10-foot pole. These cops weren't going to lead me to the guys that shot Yuri Brokin, unquote. The Moynihan-inspired investigation by the Moshela and Grinyenko team wasn't much help in Brighton Beach either. Drubin considered them buffoons and recalled one incident in which he crashed a bar mitzvah with them just to show their faces and apply a little pressure to the mobsters. It was a Sadko restaurant. It was at the Sadko restaurant, or Sadko restaurant, Drubin recalled, an infamous mob joint. Grinyenko and Moskela got shit-faced, and Peter, Grinyenko, starts dancing with all the Russian women, even breaking in on the husbands. The situation was only exacerbated, made worse, by the deep animosity between Grinyenko and Drubin, which stemmed from Grinyenko's supposed anti-Semitism. Grinyenko allegedly told Drubin that he believed Jews were, quote, genetically inferior, unquote. When Drubin countered that Grinyenko was an anti-Semite, was an anti-Semitic Cossack, the cops nearly came to blows. Oh shit. See what that booze does? Despite the numerous obstacles, Drubin and Campanella were making some progress, at least in uncovering the truth about Yuri Brokin, the guy that got shot in the head. Beneath the facade of a Soviet critic and intellectual lay a mobbed-up international drug dealer, jewel thief, and confidence man. That is otherwise known as a con man. Con man is short for confidence man. Why do they call it a con man? Because what does a con man do? He gets your confidence. And when you suspect and you say, wait a minute, are you fucking playing me up? Then what's he say? You don't trust me? I thought we were friends. You don't trust me? He wants your confidence. Hence the name con man. Which would amount to no more than a few $1,000s a year. Wait a minute. Brokeen was constantly in debt, and the paltry income from his writing career, which could amount to no more than a few $1,000s a year, certainly did not account for his rather affluent lifestyle. That means you spend a lot. Which included frequent trips to Atlantic City. Oh, Atlantic City gets another mention. To the Atlantic City gaming tables and the Aqueduct racetrack. A compulsive gambler, he also spent many evenings playing cards with his friends in the Russian mob, godfathers, future godfathers, hitmen, and extortionists who gathered to gamble in a fortified Brooklyn social club, dated back to Moscow, where Brokeen specialized in robbing copulating couples in public parks. Oh my God. So there's a couple in the park getting that groove on. Just, just fucking bite a pillow, bitch. And here comes a guy and robs you. I mean, you can't get more vulnerable than that, right? You got your jaws down. You got you're at full mast. Oh, that's fucking funny. Oh, man. Brokeen specialized in robbing copulating couples in public parks. Yuri was very close with the godfather Evsey Agran, explained Ivan, who remembered how happy Brokeen was when Agran invited him to Canada to attend the godfather's younger sister's wedding. I'm still laughing. But there was even more duplicitous side to Brokeen. Drubin later learned from federal counterintelligence agents. There was a different side, a more duplicitous. That means untrustworthy. Hey, Donovan, what do you say? Brokeen and his criminal cronies took frequent trips to Bulgaria. Let's see if we can get this right. Its spas were a favorite hangout for Brighton Beach gangsters, KGB agents, and Soviet black marketeers. The spas were cheap, conducive to conducting business, and within close proximity to the USSR. A great deal of contraband, such as narcotics, flowed in and out of the Soviet Union through Bulgaria, as did intelligence information. Sofia was also a principal money laundering center for the KGB and the Brighton Beach mob. Brokeen was frequently observed by U.S. intelligence agents slipping in and out of the Soviet Union from Bulgaria and then returning to New York. All right, so let me paint the picture. A lot of shit's going on and I'm interrupting. You got this guy Brokeen. He was shot in the head, gangster style. He's leading a double lifestyle on the face, on the front of it, ostensibly. He was the literati, right? He was a writer, and he had a legitimate lifestyle. But on the other side, he's fucking playing cards with mobsters. He's doing all this other crazy shit. And there's a connection now being made with this place called Sofia in Bulgaria. Bulgaria is situated close to the USSR, where they could help exchange goods. And so it was perfect. So you got a connection with Brighton Beach, New York, probably Rhode Island too, and this Bulgaria, and of course the USSR, and of course Israel, because most of these mobsters were Jewish and they had connections with Israel. All right, so that's just a little catch up with what's going on in this story. And they were observed by U.S. intelligence agents slipping in and out of the Soviet Union from Bulgaria and then returning to New York. U.S. counterintelligence officials believed that he was not only trading in contraband, but supplying the KGB with information about his new homeland. If he was a Soviet mole, You guys know what a mole is. It's someone who's a secret agent. If he was a Soviet mole, as these officials believed, he could easily use his status as a dissident intellectual, that's the guy that got killed, the Brokin they're talking about, and friend of the Senate Intelligence Committee to provide valuable information he may have gleaned through his relationship with Brandel. So if they could get a hold of this guy, they could probably, interrogate him and find out a whole lot more. But Brokin was killed, not because of Cold War intrigue, but because of a dispute among thieves. On the morning of Brokin's homicide, he had had breakfast. Didn't I just go off about the had? Last time, it was the last chapter. This guy's a great fucking author. But I had enough of the had. He had? He had breakfast? He had a beef? Why had? Driving me nuts. I'm a grammar Nazi. Driving me insane. Why did you had the had? Doesn't make any sense. Couldn't you just use one had there? I mean, for real, man. Come on, man. Alright, don't mind me. I'm a little insane. But that's what keeps me going. Alright. Brokin was killed not because of Cold War intrigue, but because of a dispute among thieves. On the morning of Brokin's homicide, he had breakfast. I guess. Alright, we'll let it go. He had breakfast at the National Restaurant in Brighton Beach with Ivan. Or why couldn't he just say he'd, H-E apostrophe D? Alright, I'll let it go. Then the men drove into Manhattan, where Ivan dropped him off at his home. Yuri did something wrong, Ivan recalled. Yuri told me that he was going to go and live in Europe, and I'm finished over here. Oh. Wednesday, I'm going to get a lot of money, sell the apartment, and I'm going. Okay, so this is Ivan recalling what Brokin told him. Brokin said that, who was the guy that told him? Ivan. Okay. So what had happened was, somebody told Brokin, you're finished. I'm moving back to Europe and you're fucking done. Get your ass the fuck out of here. You're being cut off. So he told his friend that. Sometime that afternoon, 2 unidentified men entered Brokin's apartment. He knew the people he let in, Drubin said. He did not know he was getting hit. Everything was laid out. The briefcase, the jeweler's loop, like he was doing business. He was a burly guy, about 5'10". He would have put up a struggle if he knew he was about to get it. And he laid down so nicely on the bed after he was killed, he hardly rumpled the bed cover. Drubin, who had been interviewed, for anybody coming in late, Drubin is the guy who's investigating the murder of this other guy, Brokin. I know there's a lot of names. It gets confusing, but it's a great story. Drubin, who had interviewed more than 100 suspects, concluded that Brokin had probably been killed in a jewelry scam gone wrong, and that Belugula's old nemesis, Vladimir Reznikov, had been the triggerman. Yuri was pulling some con on West 47th Street, and maybe there was some diamonds involved, Drubin suggested. Brokin owed some money and pissed somebody off, and he was killed. Incredibly, in the years between Brokin's homicide and the launch of Operation Red Daisy, law enforcement did little to stem the rising red tide of the Russian mob. Despite the efforts of individuals like Drubin and Campanella, and despite the glaring evidence that came to light in a few scattered prosecutions, such as that of Marat Belugula, there were still few authorities who understood or even believed that the Russian mob was a deadly threat. Nobody takes the Russian mob seriously, the soft-spoken Campanella said a few years after the Brokin incident. The lack of interest in law enforcement has given the Russians time to grow. Now, we spoke about this. This wasn't just some, oops, we forgot the Russians, or, We're just not interested in the Russians. There were good reasons. These motherfuckers would kill the cops' families, and if they did investigate these Jewish Russian mobsters, then the ADL came in and started printing shit in the New York Times about how they were anti-Semitic, because you can't look into those. We know when we read the book, The Ugly Truth About the ADL, that the ADL is all tied in with all kinds of mobsters all around the world. Russia, Israel, even South Africa, if you remember. And so these are their interests. So when the ADL, a gangster-like fucking organization that is right now policing YouTube and making it so I can't say what I want without getting my fucking video put into a limited state or outright banned, that these guys were involved in this mafioso shit. And when they come down on somebody saying they're anti-Semitic, you got to look closer, because there's probably a really good reason why they have, or that they have, for silencing someone. Just like on YouTube, when you put out any truth, and I'm not being anti-Semitic, I'm not hateful of Jews, I have Jewish friends. Like they all say, I've got a black friend. It's true. I have very good Jewish friends. So I'm not an anti-Semite. I want to talk about the proof of what's going on in these higher ups, because none of my Jewish friends own a piece of JP Morgan or are fucking members of the CFR. Sorry. These are the types I'm looking after. Fucking ADL are dirty. So these cops weren't just, oops, we forgot the Russian mob. There were good reasons. A large part, there you go. Here it comes again. A large part of the problem was political. The Russian mob was predominantly Jewish. It was for that reason, asserted Campanella and other New York state and federal law enforcement officials, that 7 years after Campanella's two-man Russian mob unit in the NYPD was inaugurated, it was shut down. Shut it down! In a highly politicized, characteristically New York City type of reaction. Now remember, this is a Jewish writer as well. So you can't accuse him of being anti-Semitic either. The effort had come under considerable criticism. What's this political correctness all about? What are you talking about? Political correctness? I don't understand what you're talking about. I speak my mind, and this is what I think. Characteristically New York City type reaction. The effort had come under considerable criticism from the Jewish establishment, which complained that the adverse publicity generated in the hunt for Russian Jewish criminals would foster anti-Semitism and jeopardize the continued emigration of Russian Jews to Israel and the West. Once again, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, we're victims. Meanwhile, who's perpetrating the crimes? Crime after crime, crime after crime. In Germany, where the arrival of the Brighton Beach mob was quickly recognized as a serious problem, police formed a task force of 100 specially trained investigators in the early 1990s to combat the Russians, according to a classified report prepared by the German Federal Police in where? In Wiesbaden. Alright, let's take a little check. We'll check the chat here. I know, dude. Existence is everything. What's up, buddy? I've been coming out, check your videos out. Thanks for supporting me. I support you. You support me. You know what I'm saying? All those faggots talking about your guitar playing. Not one of those fucking faggots will ever even have enough talent to even fucking watch a video about guitar playing. They don't understand how hard it is to play and sing at the same time. Besides, you sounded pretty good on the one song I heard. Let's see here. I talk like that. I can't say shit. Yeah, bad guy. Forgot about it, you know what I'm saying? Hey, it's New York, you know what I mean? This is the way we talk. I'll tell you what. Bad guy, I lived in New Mexico for about a year and a half. And over there, they were like, you've got such a hard accent. I'm like, what are you talking about? You should see the people from New York and Boston. I'm nothing. Yeah. And then when I came home and started hearing that home accent again, I was like, home sweet home. Over there, like we say water in New Jersey, over there they're like, may I have a glass of water? It just doesn't sound right to me, you know what I mean? Anyway, Donovan Warland. Guys, if you're not subbed to Donovan Warland, you're missing out. He puts on some really cool shit. Let me see if I could find a link to his channel. I'm so slow. I can't type for shit. Crime after crime. Crime after crime. The proud Kekistani Donovan Warland. That's what came up. My man, Kekistani. I remember when he had like fucking no views, no people. Now he's up to 1,600. That's some good work there, brother. There you go. That's Donovan Warland. Check him out. Now let's see what he has to say. Jews are getting played by their gangsters too. Dvory, I believe, is the Russian term. Dvory. The average Italian wasn't living like a Don, but they needed the Don to get insurance. And that ain't no privilege. It's true. It's true. Common Jews have been used and abused and left to hang, have been used as pawns by these other Jews who are high up in the scheme of things. Like it's not your average Jew that owns a bank, right? These are the people I'm talking about. When I come after the Jewish influence on my channel, I'm talking about the ones who even play out the average everyday Jew. Now, some people don't like average everyday Jews, and that's fine. I understand that. My mom was a hairdresser, and her main clientele was Jewish, and she had a problem with them. They would talk down to her and all, and I'm kind of picky about who I hang with, but two of my good friends happen to be Jewish, and that's the way it is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I remember, Donovan, when you only had like a couple hundred. That's when I came on board. I've been there since the beginning, man. I've been there through thick and thin, man. All right, let's get back to the yeah, it's called a book. That's right, yeah. The Russian crime wave, which included bloody rub-outs in fashionable restaurants on Berlin's Fassnenstrasse. Oh, that's a tough one. Fassnenstrasse. In Berlin's Fassnenstrasse. See, I won't get past a word until I can pronounce it. There was a lot of bloody rub-outs in fashionable restaurants on Berlin's Fassnenstrasse, forced authorities to overcome their supersensitivity to the Jewish aspect of emigre crime. If you notice, he puts that in air quotes, right? Because it's bullshit. They weren't super sensitive. They were, but it wasn't like they were just ignoring this for no reason. But in the United States, according to several top law enforcement officials, Jewish organizations continued to lobby the Justice Department to downplay the threat posed by the Russian mob. The Russian mafia has the lowest priority on the criminal pecking order, admitted FBI spokesman Joe Valicete during a 1992 interview. All these Italians, it makes my heart grow fucking fond. Some of Valicete's colleagues were harshly critical of the Bureau's lack of attention to the threat. They believed that the Organizzatia had already developed into a new version of the mafia, one that was just as ruthless as the Italian brand, but potentially very much more difficult to tackle. The Italian mobsters play bocce ball. The Russian gangsters play chess, said one law enforcement source who marveled at their growing sophistication. And while the Russian mob may not have had the cumulative force of 70 years of tradition behind it like the Cosa Nostra, by the early 1990s, some 5,000 Russian hardcore criminals had already established themselves in the New York region, a criminal presence that was as large as all the Italian mafia families combined. God damn. And we never hear about it. I wonder if that's because Hollywood is mostly run by Jewish people, and all we hear about when we hear mafia movies is the Italian mafia. Huh. Why are there so few Russian mafia stories? I can't figure it out. I just don't know. The Russians are an emerging crime group. Justice Department Professor Patrick J. Cotter, a member of the team that convicted John Gotti, said in 1992. They make tons of money. They kill people. They are international. They are moving into drugs, but we don't have a single unit of the FBI that's devoted going after them. We've got a Bonanno squad. We've got a Lucchese squad. We don't have a Russian squad. So there is your problem. If we don't begin to address the problem now, we'll be running around asking ourselves how the hell this Russian organized crime got so big and how we can get rid of them. Money is power in crime, as in everything else in this world, Cotter continued. If you ignore the fact that the Russians are reaping huge profits, you're making a bad mistake. They're not going to invest in IRAs. They're going to buy businesses. They're going to buy power. If we want to stop these guys, we better do it before they buy those things. If I've learned one thing from prosecuting the mafia the last 5 years, I've learned that that's the toughest kind of mob influence to rub out. It's relatively easy to get the drug dealers, the gun sellers, the protection racketeers. It's real tough to get the corporation that's partly owned by the mob or the union that's been corrupted. Let's check the chat right quick. Donovan Warland, yeah, you're gonna get a lot more attention. Just keep plugging away. You just keep doing what you do, and you can't do anything but grow. And you wonder how much of it has it been with YouTube with a thumb on the brakes, you know what I mean, or a foot on the brakes while you're hitting the gas. YouTube's hitting the brakes, shadow banning and all that. Which reminds me, I have to show you guys this real quick. This I have to show, or you probably wouldn't believe it. So I have a video that I did an interview with a guy, Damon. Right? You guys saw that? Now, I go to here, right? Main interview with Damon. What's it say there? 50 thumbs up and 1 thumb down, right? You see the guy is standing there, right? Let's see if I can highlight it. Right there. 50 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down. All right, let's go to the video and see what it says. Let's go to the video and see what it says. Huh? What do you think it says? 50 up and 1 down, right? Oh, look at this. What do we got here? I came out of that school at 13. What do we got here? I had more hate. 20 thumbs up and 1 down. 20 thumbs up and 1 down. And yes, I thumb up my own videos. Fuck it. Get over it. I give them a head start. Fuck yeah. Especially when I got them throttling me like this. Fuck that. What the fuck is that? 50 thumbs up, 1 down. I go to the video. It says 20 thumbs up and 1 down. These cocksuckers are fucking with us. And that's the only... You can't prove anything else, really. So, this is what we're up against. And this is why I'm dedicated to talking about this shit as much as I can, because I know who's behind it. And it's overwhelmingly Jewish. I hate to say it, but that's the way it is. Let's see. These are big Jewish mobsters like Sheldon Adelson. And these people that run the ADL and all this shit, the JDL, and 1,000 other Jewish organizations. And I think somebody needs to talk about it, god damn it. Everybody talks about, what's his name, Soros. Oh, George Soros. But there's a lot more to it than just George Soros. So I'm willing to look at all connections. I don't care where they go. This censorship is what got me started. I'm pissed off. And I got to stay pissed off, and that'll keep my motor running. So, there was, in fact, one official. The guy's complaining why there's no fucking attention to this Russian mafia. There was, in fact, one official at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., who did believe that if the government didn't quickly launch a full-scale assault on the Russian mob, it would become untouchable. James Moody, a strapping 6'3" organized crime expert, spent his youth in the backwoods of Oklahoma, a good old country boy. A large, barefoot boy in overalls, hunting and fishing with his brothers. His great-grandfather was the first chief of police in Stroud, his tiny hometown. Moody joined the FBI at the age of 29 in 1970 after a 6-year stint in the military that included 2 tours in Vietnam. In August 1989, Moody was appointed chief of the FBI's organized crime section. Examining the Bureau's past record, he realized that former director, cross-dressing gay lover J. Edgar Hoover, had not paid sufficient attention to the Italian mafia, having instead devoted the majority of his resources to his corrosive obsession combating domestic subversion and the perceived communist penetration of America. Oh, it was not perceived. The communist penetration of America was real. Was real. GDL's got a guy named DJ something. DJ and some numbers. I listened to this fucking thing by Myron Fagan, another Jew who's on our side, who did the right thing. Robert Friedman, who wrote this book. Myron C. Fagan, who wrote this book. You've got a bunch of people who are giving us good information. It doesn't make sense to say all Jews at all. It doesn't make sense to me. People can do what they want. That's why I'm a free agent. I do what I want. I got to find this for you. It's worth the extra 2 seconds. Let me get in here and find this. What it was Myron C. Fagan giving a speech about how Hollywood was infiltrated by communists. So all that shit we heard about, McCarthyism was all bullshit. It was deep. It was real. If you guys ever heard about people like, who were some of those people that were infiltrating? Famous communist spies. Here you go. Red Stars over Hollywood. The sound quality is shit. Alright, I admit it. But the information will blow you away. Alright? Red Stars over Hollywood. Hollywood. Alright, so we know, and it makes sense. Alright, we're reading a book about Russian mobsters from the former Soviet Union. Communists. So how far is it a stretch to say that Hollywood Jewish producers were also communist? I mean, it's not a stretch. This is not a stretch, people. So yeah, that's what's going on. Red Stars over Hollywood. You guys will be blown away. Actually, Star has only one R in there. My bad. Yeah, absolutely. Watch it later. You know, put it in your put that shit in your, what's the name? Your watch later list. And you're good to go. Believe me, deal with the quality, because what he says is fucking crazy. It's crazy. All of Hollywood is a communist conspiracy. It just really is. I don't even care if I sound nuts saying that. Don't care. Because it's the truth. Yep. It's true. And you know that if you guys ever heard of Yuri Bezmenov, I know it was mentioned in HT's stream. Yuri Bezmenov. He talks about how the infiltration is going to happen in the United States. And this was years ago. This is one great contribution to us that Edgar G. Robinson, or Eddie Griffin had to the movement. I'll be able to speak soon. Don't worry. I'll get my tongue back. This is Yuri Bezmenov. And I do this because other people are going to watch this video later. And I want people to see these things. Yuri Bezmenov. He talks about how they're going to debauch the morals of society, how they're going to make us into animals where anything goes. And, you know, pornography, which also pornography is run predominantly by Jews. The music that we hear is run predominantly by Jews. They decide what kind of music we hear. And this Yuri Bezmenov talks about how the idea of communism is to make us like immoral animals, so that we listen. Look what they did to black people's music. Black people 30 years ago made beautiful, great music. It was wholesome. It was music you could listen to with your family. Now, it's something different. Let's just say that. And all our morals have been degraded by Hollywood. Jesus Christ, I sound like one of those 1980s conservatives. But I'm not. I'm no conservative. I'm liberal in my thinking. For a lot. I'm conservative in other things too. That's why I don't take the conservative or liberal label. There's a lot about liberals that I hate too. But the point is, our fucking morals have been degraded and debauched, and Hollywood did it. And when you find out that this guy's telling us that Hollywood were communist, when you hear Bezmenov tell us about what the communist plan was, and when you look at the result of what's coming out of Hollywood and the music industry, and even on stage and art and all of media, look at what's happening to us. They have fucking destroyed our once great morals. Like, maybe we were a little too moral. Maybe we're a little too Elizabethan. But guess what? I'd rather raise a family in that environment than today's environment, where the kid can get on and he can see gangbangs and all this shit at fucking 7 or 8 years old. And every kid has got a cell phone in their hand. It's ridiculous. I hear you, EIE. I'm going to call you EIE. E-I-E-I-O. That's it. That's your nickname. Who was the farmer? And on his farm, he had some pigs. E-I-E. Oh my God, I'm losing my fucking mind. I convinced a close friend that Jews are subversive by using gangster rap as an example. I got you. E-I-E-I-O. I'm gonna show you something. I don't like rap. I fucking hate it, to be honest with you. I'm cool with people who like it. That's all. I understand it's a different world and I'm an old man. But this right here tells you all about how the Jews degraded hip-hop. And so if you're looking, EI, if you're looking for proof to your friend of what you were saying, this is it. Willie Lynch's Newest Slave. All right? There you go. I actually did a chapter live, one stream, just for the fuck of it. And it ties into the ADL and the Bronfman family and the Bronfmans who own Seagram's. So not only is Bronfman putting this disgusting rap music into black culture, degrading them like animals, but they're also putting a liquor store on each fucking corner in their hood. I'm for personal responsibility too. I think that black people should be more responsible, but you gotta admit the fucking things that they face, the challenges that they face. You know what I mean? I'm a pro-white advocate. I think whites are under attack, but at the same time, I got to be honest with what I see. And black people face some fucked up shit out there. And part of it is the debauching of their society and their morals. Black people used to dress nice. They used to talk respectfully. And now this shit has got them fucking degraded to the point. Bill Cosby was right when he said pull up your drawers and you know, get your shit straight. Even a rapist can be right. So, anyway, I'm going way off the subject and I got to finish this. So let's do it. We're going to run through the rest of this. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. HT, don't forget, HT is coming on in about 20 minutes. Something like that. All right. So now, we got this guy Stroud. He's a strapping white boy from Oklahoma, and he's going to start looking into things. and he was appointed chief of the FBI's organized crime section. Examining the Bureau's past record, he realized that J. Edgar Hoover had not paid sufficient attention to the Italian mafia, having instead devoted the majority of his resources to his corrosive obsession, combating domestic subversion and the perceived communist penetration of America, which is what sent me off on that tangent. In the 1960s, when New York's 5 Italian crime families controlled labor unions, the garment industry, and the docks, there was only one FBI field agent in Manhattan assigned to organized crime, whose very existence, Hoover had proclaimed, was baloney. That's a nice way of saying squadooshie bullshit. The FBI had to wait until Hoover's death in 1972 to undertake a serious investigation of La Cosa Nostra. Oh, by the way, I think the reason he wasn't looking too deep into the mob is because the mob had pictures of him with his boyfriend. And he was a cross-dresser. So it's well known J. Edgar Hoover was a cross-dresser. There's no doubt about it. There's no argument. He was gay and he was a cross-dresser. And so they were dangling that over his head. And in return, he said, well, I just won't look what you guys are doing. I mean, I just won't look at what you're doing. Oh, man. So he said 1972 he died, and he said he wouldn't undertake a serious investigation of La Cosa Nostra, but by then it had become a criminal colossus. Moody didn't want to repeat that era with the surging Russian mob. Still, he was having trouble convincing colleagues of the seriousness of the threat. The FBI continued to be allowed to pursue individual Russian crimes only when it came across them. Then, in 1992, during the heady first days of the fall of communism, Moody received a visit from Mikhail Konstantinovich Yegorov. That's a mouthful. The first deputy minister of the Interior for the Russian Federation. The Russian proposed an immediate cooperation agreement with American law enforcement to combat jointly the Russian mob. I can't do it because we have so much of a past history of being enemies, Moody told Yegorov. After spending a day chauffeuring him around the American capital, we're going to have to kind of take it a step at a time. But Yegorov would not be so easily dissuaded, and he asked, okay, what can I do to improve the relationship and get it moving a little faster? I don't know of a specific thing right now, but whenever I identify one, I'll get back in touch with you, Moody replied. It didn't take Moody long to propose a specific plan. 2 fugitives from Red Daisy, David Schuster and an accomplice, were known to be hanging out in Moscow. Moody wanted them, but Yegorov reminded him that the countries didn't have an extradition treaty. That's when one country's holding you, but you're wanted in another country, and you get extradited to the country that wants you. That means shipped over, like trafficked right over. That's true, Moody admitted. We don't have any treaties whatsoever, but expel those guys from your country as being bad, he urged him, as a way to jumpstart the relations. About 2 days later, maybe 3, Moody recalled, I come walking into my office and there's a handwritten fax on my desk. Moody, we've got 'em, the note said. Please come and get them. The previous day, a Russian commando unit wearing sky blue ski masks and bulletproof vests had stormed Schuster's import-export firm in downtown Moscow. A furious gun battle ensued. When the shooting stopped, Schuster was on his back, being pummeled by members of the Russian Special Forces, but putting up an impressive fight all the same. My understanding is that Schuster broke 2 sets of Russian handcuffs. God damn, Moody said. He's not a very tall guy, but he's strong as hell. At first, the Russians didn't know what to do with him. Schuster was, in fact, being illegally detained. If they put him in jail, the Russian Federal Prosecutor's Office would learn that the Ministry of Interior was covertly working with the FBI, and the event could spark a Cold War-style political firestorm. So in typically brutal Russian style, yes, they are, Schuster was transported to a defense... Oh, help me, please, God, help me. Schuster was transported to a dense forest outside of Moscow, dumped into a hole, and buried up to his neck in gravel. So, this guy on the U.S. side, Moody, wanted to work with him, but he's like, our countries are enemies. And so the Russian guy says, all right, I'm going to one-up you to show good faith. And totally illegally rounded these guys up, beat the fuck out of them, and stuffed them in a hole up to their neck, and said, see, we'll work with you. Russian style, you gotta love it. Gotta love it. The Russians informed the FBI that they would have to retrieve Schuster within 3 days, at which point he would be released. The Bureau scrambled, but obtained a Russian visa on short notice. But obtaining a Russian visa on short notice wasn't easy in those days. Remember, it was the Cold War. Even for a U.S. government agency. Finally, Klaus C. Rohr, an old organized crime hand and the FBI's assistant legate in Bonn, made it to Russia and was taken directly to Schuster. We don't have any jurisdiction in Russia, Rohr told him, after identifying himself as an agent of the FBI, but we're going to put you on a plane and take you back to the United States, and I'm going to arrest you once we get back to America. If you give me any problems, I'm going to leave you in the fucking hole. No problem, Schuster replied, which is what most people would say in that situation. Moody immediately took the facts from Yegorov, relaying the news of Schuster's capture to Larry Potts, the assistant director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. He hoped to use the document to make a case for starting a Russian organized crime squad and, I'm turning the page, and for cooperating with Russian police and security officials. Initiatives vociferously opposed by the foreign counterintelligence side of the FBI, which considered the Russians to be an everlasting threat to national security, perestroika or not. I think perestroika was the working together of the U.S. and Russia. Perestroika. Let's see, real quick. The policy or practice of restructuring or reforming the economic and political system in Russia. Okay, good enough. You might say all of our obstacles suddenly disappeared after the Schuster snatch, Moody said. With the strong backing of Attorney General Janet Reno. Janet Reno, now there's a boner killer if I ever heard of one. The FBI set up a Russian organized crime subsection at its Washington, D.C. headquarters in early 1993, which would report directly to Moody and which received full authority to investigate the Russian mob as an organized criminal cartel. So they're jumping over all these international hurdles and still getting the job done. Entrenched bureaucrats with Cold War hangovers continued to fight the new initiatives. It was only in May 1994 that the FBI office in New York, commanded by William A. Gavin, finally set up a squad specifically targeted to fighting Russian organized crime, and even then, he didn't seem to realize just how late he had entered the battle. I had a problem getting Gavin's attention, Moody explained, citing Gavin's resistance to setting up a Russian force. He said he liked to do his own thing. I said, okay, you go do your own thing, but you're not going to do it with my manpower. It wasn't until Moody started shifting personnel out of the New York office that Gavin capitulated. I basically forced him into setting up the Russian squad, Moody acknowledged. It was dubbed the C-24 squad, or the C-24 squad. With few informants and only a superficial knowledge of New York's 300,000-strong Russian emigre community, the FBI realized how handicapped it was in this effort. Based on its early reports, Raymond C. Kerr, the head of the new Russian unit under Gavin, believed that there were 3 or 4 major Russian crime families operating in Brighton Beach, with outposts in at least 5 other U.S. cities. The largest family consisted primarily of Jewish emigres, many of them from Odessa. A second family was from Tashkent in Uzbekistan. The FBI had identified them as Muslim. People in the community insisted they were Jews. Little crypto stuff going on. A third family was from Ekaterinburg in Russia. As far as the bosses, or the FBI's Gavin and Kerr, could determine, each of the families had a Cosa Nostra-like pyramid structure, with bosses or godfathers poised at the top, and beneath them the consiglieres, or advisors, and then the crews. But virtually everyone else in law enforcement with a knowledge of the Russian mob challenged the FBI model. You can't put them in a family, one DEA official explained. One day, 2 guys are trying to kill each other, and the next day, they're doing a dope deal together. He added that while Italian wise guys often specialized in particular criminal enterprises, the Russians tended to be generalists. Whatever opportunity affords itself, that's what they do that day. Meanwhile, with Schuster in hand, federal prosecutors moved forward with trying the Red Daisy case. Bootlegging czar Vladimir Zilber and 6 other Russians, as well as 5 Gambino crime family figures, had been indicted in Newark, New Jersey, for federal excise tax fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. But to solidify the case, the prosecutors still needed members of the criminal enterprise to cooperate, and so they offered Schuster a deal he couldn't refuse. I'll make a deal. I'll make an offer you can't refuse. If he agreed to testify against members of the massive bootlegging conspiracy, he would be given a letter that promises to petition the judge for leniency at sentencing as a reward for cooperation. As part of his proffer agreement, or deal with the government, which required him to confess to every crime he had ever committed, Schuster admitted that he was an international pickpocket, gasoline bootlegger, and had dabbled in dealing Turkish heroin. The government confiscated $6 million from him. I wonder where that money went. As well as 17 cars and real estate, then stashed him in a safe house until the... Oh, turn the page, my bad. Until the... Oh yeah, this is smooth. Until the trial. Local police were furious that Schuster had gotten a deal. They suspected that he had ordered a jewelry store heist in Lodi, New Jersey. That had led to the shooting death of an off-duty cop. I swear to God, when I'm done this stream, I'm going to cut my fucking tongue out of my head. I'm going to set it on fire, and I'm going to mail it to somebody who can talk. The investigating officers had several witnesses, including gang members, who were at the scene of the execution. The federal prosecutors were given the information but chose to ignore it. As far as the police were concerned, Schuster, who vehemently denied his involvement in the affair, had lied to get his letter and had gotten off the hook for killing a cop. Zilber's case was severed from the others. His attorneys alleged that brain damage from his attack on the FDR left him incompetent to stand trial. Whether or not he went to court hardly mattered. The government seized $550,000 in cash from his safe deposit box, and his $1.2 million house in New Jersey was put in foreclosure. His wife walked out on him. His brother, Alex, fled with the family fortune, heading first for Brazil and then to Moscow, where he eventually ran an aluminum factory and a casino for the Genovese crime family. Vladimir spends his days on a beach on the Coney Island boardwalk gazing absently out to sea, or holed up in his meager apartment listening to CNN. What a sad life indeed. He receives free meals at Rasputin, and his old gang pitched in to buy him a live-in whore. Now that's pals for you. Now you know you got friends when they buy you a live-in whore. That's nice. That's very touching. The one thing I hear that's still functioning well, without any inhibitions, is a lust for women of all ages. A federal prosecutor related, Vladimir has no control over himself. If his grandmother was in the room, he'd go after her. I think, no pun intended, his brain is really shot. Oh, cheers to him, Vladimir. Shot in the fucking head, no money, but he's still got his libido. That's a true man. Ladies, don't think any of us are any different. We're all men. With Vladimir Zilber excused from testifying, Gambino Capo and Anthony Fat Tony Morelli became Red Daisy's marquee defendant. Morelli was accused of directing subordinates to use intimidation and violence to collect the mob tax from the Russian bootleggers. A wealthy Shylock and fence who was notoriously stingy, Morelli had retained high-priced attorney Barry Slotnick to represent his bagman Edward Doherty, but then refused to pay his full fee. Slotnick's enthusiasm for the case understandably waned, and when Doherty deduced that Morelli was setting him up to be the fall guy, he joined the government's growing cast of cooperating witnesses. Although Morelli could afford to hire the best criminal lawyer in New York for himself, he retained a second-string Gambino house attorney by the name of Richard Raybach, who regularly annoyed juries with his constant, seemingly irrelevant objections and bombastic speeches. It hardly helped Morelli's case when, about a month into the Red Daisy trial, Raybach was the subject of a humiliating front-page expose in the New York Post. Yeah, it's not good when your lawyer, in the middle of your trial, is exposed on the front of the New York Post. Star gossip columnist Cindy Adams quoted Raybach's estranged wife, Sylvia Di Pietro, as alleging that her husband had hidden $100,000 of mob cash in a suit in his clothes closet and kept 3 sets of accounting books. Guys, hiding money in your clothes is not a new one, okay? I don't advise it. Especially if it's 100 large. Having already angered Morelli as a result of his wife's vexatious accusations, vexed means you're pissed, so she was fucking pissed, Raybach further put himself in disfavor with his questionable trial strategy. Boy, this guy's a winner. Early in the case, for example, he made a colossal blunder when the government introduced Colombo soldier Frankie the Bug Scurtino's personal phone book into evidence. The book was valuable to the prosecution's case in that it listed Morelli's various private phone numbers as well as the telephone numbers of numerous Russian bootleggers and Italian gangsters involved in the Red Daisy bootlegging scam, and therefore helped establish the web of relationships in the Russian-Italian bootleg combine about which Doherty, Schuster, and others were going to testify. Moron! Remember, when you put something up as evidence, you have to disclose it to the other side too. If you're the defense, you have to, it's called discovery. And when you're the prosecution and you want to use this, the defense can look at it too, or vice versa, and they can look through it to see if there's anything in there that can help them. So if you think you're just going to pick one little thing out of this whole treasure trove of evidence, you're a fucking moron. The defense is going to use it too, or the prosecution, whatever the case may be. So let's see. The FBI had arrested the Bug. What a name, the Bug. On September 29th, 1989, initially for witness tampering. The agent responsible for his apprehension was called to the stand. Let's go to the next. This is the last bit. Was called to the stand. I guess we did make it. I don't have that many people listening anyway, but that's okay. Merely to place the confiscated book into evidence. In his cross-examination of the agent, however, Raybach inadvertently helped prove the government's case. Fucking moron. Apparently unaware that the FBI agent was a well-known expert on organized crime, and moreover had investigated every name in the bug's thick black book, Raybach asked, "Agent, this doesn't say phone book of Frankie Sciortino's mob friends, does it?" "No, it just says an address book or telephone book," the agent replied. "Is the book entitled All My Gangster Friends?" "No." "The first entry, is he in the gas business?" "I don't know." "Is he a gangster?" Raybach asked, his confidence growing. "I can't tell you." "Is he a person that's listed on the little charts that you have on the wall in the FBI office as an organized crime member?" "I don't know." Emboldened even further, Raybach ventured forth. "How about the next one, Artie Goldstein? Do you know him?" "I believe he is in business on Long Island, a Shylock victim." "That's what? A customer of Mr. Sciortino? Is that what you're saying?" "He had a loan with Mr. Sciortino." By asking the witness to characterize whether the people listed in Sciortino's book were mobsters, Raybach had opened the door for the government to do the same thing on redirect examination. "Let's go through some of the names," said prosecutor Robert Stahl. "Anthony in Florida. I believe that's Anthony Trentacosta, a made member of the Gambino crime family," replied the G-man. A G-man is a government man. "Benny A. Go to page 45. Benny A. That would be Benny Alloy. I believe he's a Colombo-made member." After identifying a number of wise guys, as well as Frankie the Bug's loan shark victims, Stahl stopped just before Morelli's name, by which point the jury wasn't just laughing, Stahl recalled. "We took a break, and Morelli says loud enough for us to hear, 'Hey, Richie, what are you gonna do? The fucking 20 years for me now?'" That's classic. That is classic. This is what you get when you get a low-rent lawyer. "Hey, forget about it. I was doing the best I could, both." The gangster's prediction proved to be all too accurate. He was convicted and sentenced to exactly 20 years. In addition, 11 defendants also were convicted. Schuster was released from custody not long after the trial and is living somewhere in Brooklyn. That's the guy who was buried up to his neck in Russia. Since he only testified against Italians, he was nothing to fear from the Russians. However groundbreaking an effort the Red Daisy prosecutions and several successful bootlegging prosecutions thereafter, they scarcely had any repercussions on the Russian mob, which continued to make tons of money as it spread across America. "The cancer is beyond the lymph nodes," the New York State taxman Berger glumly noted in 1994. Nevertheless, recognizing the severe destabilizing effect that organized crime was having on Russia's tenuous democracy, that means on shaky ground, FBI Director Louis Frey told a Senate subcommittee in May 1994 that the war against the Russian mob is critical, not just for the Russians, but for all of us, because the fall of democracy there poses a direct threat to our national security and to world peace. Yeah, democracy, schmocracy. Frey traveled to Russia, where he proposed launching a lawful, massive, and coordinated law enforcement response against Russian organized crime. He suggested setting up an international data bank and training Russian police in American investigative methods. That year, the FBI established such an academy for ex-Eastern Bloc law enforcement officials in Budapest. The relationship Moody worked for so hard to forge quickly foundered. Foundered is when a boat hits ground and gets fucking taken out. There is a great distrust on the American side of the integrity of Russian law enforcement, says Rutgers criminologist James Fickenauer, who was awarded a grant from the Justice Department to study Russian organized crime. They want to sell their information. They think if the information is valuable, it must be worth something. These are badly underpaid people who are looking for money from wherever they can get it. And as the Genovese crime figure who backed Rasputin says, we'll always be able to pay more than the FBI. Remember, Rasputin was that club, that nightclub. They're not talking about actually Rasputin. Last paragraph, however short it fell of its goals, the Red Daisy campaign did mark the belated recognition by American law enforcement of how serious a threat the Russian mob actually posed. But although the FBI, all along with other local and federal agencies like the DEA and Customs Bureau, could now focus some of its energies on penetrating the mafia's extensive web of influence and corruption, the effort may have come too late. Oh, that was intentional, if you ask me. For looming just over the horizon was a force that dwarfed the Brighton Beach Mafia in size and power, and it was headed directly for U.S. shores. And so the next is called Red Tide. Maybe I'll do it after the stream for what's the name? I love the Shylock. I do too, because that's a reference to the pound of flesh in Shakespeare's play, right? And it was the Jew who was lending the money wanted his pound of flesh. They called him a Shylock. So Jewish people get offended with that term, understandably, but that's where it comes from. All right, guys. I imagine that HT is probably on by now. We went over 2 hours with all my little bullshit. All right, thanks for coming. Let me say goodbye in person. Peace. Maybe I'll do another stream later tonight. Help get this book out of the way because there's so much shit I want to read. All right, guys. Peace out. I'll see you over at HT's stream. Have a good one.